Good morning. A lot of attendees still rolling in. My name's Andrew Burnett. I'm Vice President of Workforce and Rural Health at the Tennessee Hospital Association. Welcome to the first of many webinar series that we will be hosting throughout the rest of this year in 2024 to highlight healthcare workforce innovations and as well as workforce best practices. THA hosted 14 hospital and academic collaborative meetings throughout each of the 3 grand divisions this year, and we had over 65 hospitals and health systems attend, as well as 82 academic institutions attend. And much of what you'll hear through this webinar today and throughout next year, things that we heard throughout those forums that really influenced what things we'll be working on next year. But I'm proud to hand things off to THA's Director of Workforce Strategies, Dr. Farrell Thomas. Farrell?
Thank you so much, Andrew. Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have this presentation today, and as Andrew mentioned, our future webinars. So please be on the lookout for future topics in relation to workforce in our healthcare organizations and innovative models. Again, welcome to the Apprenticeship Model and Program, THA Workforce Strategies webinar. I am happy to introduce our speakers today. I will be facilitating, so if you have any questions that you'd like to place in the chat, we would ask that you definitely do that. But as we are moving through the content, we will also ask that you reserve your questions till the end of each presenter's presentation. We'll take a few moments in between each presentation, but then we'll have a larger dialogue session at the end of each of the presentations. So you can see here that we have our agenda. We have, as Andrew mentioned, quite a bit of great content to cover, not only the apprenticeship model and our Department of Labor partners, but also several folks who are helping to facilitate programs, organize programs along the apprenticeship model, as well as an example of a program. And so we're very excited to get started today. So I will go ahead and introduce our first speaker. Shalandria Shaw is the State Director of Apprenticeship. In August 2021, Shalandria Shaw was recruited by the Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development to lead and grow registered apprenticeship programs. Today, the state of Tennessee has over 370 programs and 8,400 apprentices. Additionally, over 4,000 registered apprentices have completed their programs since Governor Lee established the office in July of 2019. Regionally, Shalandria serves West Tennessee and consults employers across 21 counties on effective workforce development strategies. She collaborates with the Greater Memphis, Northwest, and Southwest local workforce development areas, federal and state agencies, the K-12, K through 12 system, post-secondary institutions, and intermediaries to expand and earn and learn job training models across the state. In June 2023, Shalandria was named the Deputy State Apprenticeship Director. Congratulations on that. Being a former teacher, she is most proud of the collaboration across state agencies that successfully delivered the first federally approved Tennessee Teacher Occupation Apprenticeship Program, which is now a national model and permanent grow your own pathway that is strengthening the existing systems and addressing teacher workforce shortages. Today, Tennessee has about 700 teacher apprentices with 56 completers to date. Shalandria hopes to achieve the same success with the registered nurse occupation to resolve healthcare labor force needs. Shalandria, I'll go ahead and let you take it away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for the warm welcome, Dr. Thomas, for that warm introduction. I appreciate THA for this pivotal opportunity. Good morning and happy Wednesday to everyone. One of the best parts of my job is meeting apprentices along with current and potential registered apprenticeship program partners across the state. Another one is delivering Apprenticeship 101 to anyone who will listen. So I appreciate your attention in advance to share. Just want to share a high-level overview of Tennessee's Registered Apprenticeship Program Initiative. Next slide. Apprenticeship Tennessee is celebrating 4.5 years of leading and growing programs across this great state. We have about 7 primary state agencies that work together to achieve a common objective, which is to strengthen the number of registered apprenticeships in the state. That is the number of Tennesseans participating in an earn and learn workforce training model, connecting them to a viable career pathway and desirable wages. So we do this work every day. Of course, my agency, the Department of Labor and Workforce Development, led by Commissioner Denise Thomas, TBR, THEC, Department of Ed, ECD, DHS, and the Department of Corrections all play vital roles in helping us to bolster apprenticeships across this great state. Next slide. Tennessee became a recognized state apprenticeship agency, or an SAA state, in March 2022. So about 2 years ago, Tennessee sent the application to the federal government to become an SAA. And once approved, we have been since recognized by the Federal Office of Apprenticeship to act on behalf of the USDOL to register and oversee Tennessee programs. So we are state employees who approve and manage programs in the federal database, RAPIDS 2.0. We answer questions about the apprenticeship model, guide partners on each phase of developing a program. We connect businesses to training partners, advise partners on available funding sources to support apprenticeships. Prior to becoming an SAA, the U.S. Department of Labor approved and managed Tennessee programs. So we are proud of this designation because we get to work closely with our Tennessee partners and apprentices. Next slide. So what is an apprenticeship? You may have heard of some famous apprentices, Leonardo da Vinci, apprentice painter. Elvis Presley was even an apprentice electrician, but these are definitely not those apprenticeships. Today, registered apprenticeship is a proven strategy to develop a skilled workforce. RAPs, as we like to call them, are a training method that combines paid on-the-job learning, or OJL, with related technical instruction or related instruction, RTI. Programs are designed to meet the needs of employers and their workforce challenges. We have a wide range of industries that are adapting apprenticeships to meet their needs, from high demand occupations to mom and pop stores, family owned or independent businesses. We have apprenticeships that are associated with non-degreed and degreed and licenses and non-licensed occupations. Next slide. The components of apprenticeships: we must have employer involvement. The employer really drives the program. Programs are industry vetted and approved to ensure alignment with industry standards, and that our apprentices are trained for highly skilled, high demand occupations. Apprentices are paid employees who produce high quality work while they learn skills that enhance the organization's needs. Apprentices are committed to their roles, as are the employers. They are committed to wage progression for the apprentice as the apprentice gains new skills. Apprentices work through a combination of on-the-job learning and classroom training. It could be virtual or in person. The training plan is for this learner, it should detail the skills and knowledge an apprentice will learn on the job and in the classroom to become fully proficient during the apprenticeship program. So the U.S. Department of Labor has established training plans for all approved occupations, which are available to Tennessee partners. We help you select those occupations in training plans, and we tailor them to suit the needs of the employer, and we help them to also develop those training outlines. One major component also is the mentorship. I would say in the healthcare space, that mentor may also, be called that journey worker or the preceptor. So that is the person that oversees that structured on-the-job learning. So those are those licensed workers that supervise the apprentice. In the state of Tennessee, apprentices make above minimum wage, and there is an outlined wage progression, start, middle to end. Next slide. And of course, that major accomplishment after that apprentice completes the program, they receive this credential, what we call the journeyman or journey worker certificate. This is transferable across state boundaries, conferred by the sponsor or the employer, meaning that they have officially and legally been awarded the apprentice journeyman certificate. It means that the apprentice has fully met the on-the-job learning and related technical instruction requirements necessary. Next slide. So formal apprenticeship programs usually last about 4 years, depending on the employer or the occupation. They could take as little as 12 months. For example, a community health worker, long-term care nurse, or surgical tech, and maybe even a pharmacist, their programs average 1 year. In the apprenticeship world, 1 year equals 2,000 hours of on-the-job learning, supplemented by 144 hours of related instruction. A 2-year or 4,000 hour program may be that of a registered nurse or EMT. I would say a 3-year program, 6,000 hours, could be that of a home health aide or certified nurse assistant. And we have some biomedical equipment techs and firefighter paramedics who may participate in a 4-year program. Next slide. There are 3 responsibilities of registered apprenticeship programs: the sponsor, the employer, and the training provider. So you must identify a willing sponsor and engage key partners, including the apprenticeship office, educators, intermediaries, workforce development boards, and the American Job Centers. The employer, again, drives the bus. This program is industry driven. The employer hires the apprentice, pays the apprentice, provides the on-the-job learning component, and assumes the cost of training. The sponsor could be the employer, but nevertheless, the sponsor is responsible for administrating the program in accordance with all applicable provisions in Title 29, the Title 29 Code of Federal Regulations, Parts 29 and 30. And of course, the training provider provides the RTI. Related technical instruction models can be traditional, where the apprentices take classes while working full time. You could also front load that instruction, where the apprentices may take the majority of those classes at the beginning of the program, or the classroom instruction could be segmented, divided into parts and just spread throughout those on-the-job learning periods. Next slide. I would like to add that apprentices are afforded worker protections while receiving this rigorous training to equip them with the skills they need to succeed in the proper training and supervision that they need to be safe. And again, apprentices earn a portable, nationally recognized credential within their industry. Next slide. Quality pre-apprenticeship programs are a great way to connect to untapped talent pipelines. So there's a partnership with the Registered Apprenticeship Program to ensure that direct entry with advanced credit upon completion of the pre-apprenticeship. And so here, the pre-apprenticeship is connected to the RAP. The employer agrees to interview apprentices, but there is no obligation to hire. If that pre-apprentice is fortunate enough to enter that registered apprenticeship program, then they are awarded credit. The pre-apprentice does not have to be employed, and there is no on-the-job training component requirement. Next slide. So benefits to employers, even though the state of Tennessee will help offset costs of training, if apprenticeships are implemented with fidelity and effectiveness, there's an organic return on investment. Research shows that on average, for every $1 that is invested into the apprentice, there's a $1.47 return. So of course that increases the bottom line. Some barriers that may interfere, and we want to work on sharing the good news about apprenticeships in those facts. Farrell, if you could advance to the next slide, we'll just go over some myths associated with apprenticeships. Next slide. So apprenticeships certainly have become a model through the use with unions in those joint committees, but apprenticeships are for all types of businesses, small and large. We have lots of programs that have non-union involvement. Many colleges and universities are registered apprenticeship sponsors along with nonprofits. Even though in the state of Tennessee, our largest number of apprentices are in the construction trades, we have, there are more than 1,000 approved apprenticeship occupations for the professional sector. So there are apprenticeship programs in all industries. Apprentices come from different backgrounds, and apprenticeships have a blend of work and education. Many programs include college level education, such as our teacher apprenticeship in healthcare occupations. The federal government does not micromanage, nor does the state of Tennessee Department of Labor and Workforce Development. We don't tell you who to hire, who to fire. This program really does belong to the employers. Next slide. Overall, in the state of Tennessee, we have over 8,500 apprentices. We currently have 387 programs today. We have 28 healthcare registered apprenticeship programs and over 300 apprentices participating in those programs. And I am hoping after today, those numbers will definitely increase. If you would like to find a program and learn more about what we do, please follow us on social media. Visit our website, apprenticeshiptn.com. And here's a map, next slide. Here's a map of our apprenticeship team. We currently have vacancies in the West and in the middle. Our East Director, Autumn Derrick, also serves as our Deputy Director. But if you have any questions, our support staff, we are here to To assist you, I will ensure that you have a one-pager complete with contact information and a summary of this, this presentation. This concludes my presentation. Farrell, if we want to move into the Q&A.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shalandria. Any questions from the group regarding the content that Shalandria has presented? And please unmute yourself. Everyone was muted at the beginning of the call, so please unmute yourself in order to speak, or you're also able to enter questions into the chat. Okay, well, no questions at this time. Thank you again, Shalandria, and we'll move to our next presenter. If you do have any questions, again, please don't hesitate to raise your hand or place something in the chat, and we will address that at the end of the next presentation. Thank you again. All right, our next speaker is JC Worrell. JC is the Chief Executive Officer of Rural Health Association of Tennessee, a longtime THA partner since they were founded 30 years ago. RHA's mission is to lead the way for a health tomorrow throughout rural Tennessee through partnerships, advocacy, education, and resources. Their current work includes establishing a rural health clinic network to provide technical assistance to provider-based and independent RHCs, their rural community opioid response network, and the rural workforce development program aimed at supporting recruitment and retention of entry-level healthcare professionals. We're happy to have JC with us. Thank you so much, and I'll go ahead and move into your slides.
Hey, great. Thank you, Dr. Thomas. I know rural can be hard to say multiple times in a row, but you did a great job there. And thank you, Shalandria, for that introduction. I am delighted to be representing Rural Health Association of Tennessee this morning. Thank you all for joining us. If you're unfamiliar with Rural Health Association of Tennessee, we are a 501c3 nonprofit established 30 years ago, like Farrell said. And our mission is really about improving the health of Tennesseans. We've got over 800 members across the state representing all 95 counties. And our members include rural hospitals, clinics, school health professionals, mental and behavioral health providers, really anyone that cares about rural health. And on our next slide, you'll see our mission that Farrell referenced in her introduction. The key here, I'll point out partnerships and education as it's related to our workforce development program. Here you'll see a photo of a signing event that we did with the Office of Apprenticeships. And education is something as an association, oh, excuse me, go back, please. Sorry, not ready for that just yet. So education is really just foundational to our work as an association, similar to like THA is doing with you all here today. So we began our workforce development program in 2020 with the Office of Apprenticeships, which was established only a year or so earlier. And we can go on to the next slide. And some of our bullet points here, we began, our first employer partner was West Tennessee Healthcare. We had a very small grant of only $150,000 and a $25,000 match with AmeriGroup to work with them to implement registered apprenticeships for their patient care techs. Now, we quickly learned that we were not ready to help such a large system implement this model. For larger systems that have very defined HR policies, practices, wage scales, it was a little bit more of a challenge for the registered apprenticeship program, not because it's impossible. In fact, we are officially recognized by the U.S. Department of Labor as champions. So we're big supporters of the apprenticeship model. It's just at this time, with our small budget and being new in the Office of Apprenticeship being new, we had to pivot to more of a hybrid program. So what you see here as we're talking about our workforce development program, this is encompassing of not just our apprenticeships, but some of the other work that we do. With West Tennessee Healthcare, we were able to support their patient care techs through orientations and case management and additional supportive services. But now, as our workforce program has grown the last couple of years, we've served over 2,000 Workforce Ready participants. And our Workforce Ready program is really a soft skills program. We developed that at first in partnership again with West Tennessee Healthcare, and we asked them, what are the things that you wish your young employees walked in the door knowing, exhibiting, having? And a lot of it was those soft skills of communication, how to interview, how to dress appropriately on the job, those sorts of things. So we developed that program, which is technically approved as a pre-apprenticeship program, but we haven't used it as such for a few of the reasons, but one of them being is we use this program as an opportunity to cast the net really, really wide. We want to introduce youth to careers in healthcare, understanding that most young people think that a career in healthcare is limited to doctor, nurse, dentist, and a 4-year or longer degree. And our program really focuses on those entry-level positions and helping educate young people about the variety of careers kind of at that ground level. So earlier when Ms. Shaw showed you those different tiers, 2,000 hours, 4, 6, and 8, our program really focuses at those entry-level positions, although of course apprenticeships are not limited to that. So currently we are doing this program in partnership with Jackson State and TCAT Jackson. One of the things that we learned when we were doing this, our logic at first was that high school students needed those soft skills, but someone to Jackson State came to us and said, actually, this would be really beneficial for our students. So we did it with their EKG and billing and coding program as well, because a lot of times people will leave school and maybe they'll work in hospitality or food service or, you know, kind of odd and end jobs. And when they come back to school, like a Jackson State or a TCAT, they're usually ready to get on a career path. And so we kind of help them with those entry-level things. And then of course we work with the CTE students. Through our workforce development program, we've got more than 70 employer partners and we've had more than 500 workforce participants. So the pro of doing this hybrid workforce program is that we have been able to assist a large number of individuals, and those numbers are rounded, attain certification, sometimes upskilling. The downside of this hybrid program is that without being a registered apprenticeship program, we really didn't see those retention measurements that we would have hoped to see. So when we talk about apprenticeships, also, we're really talking about a retention mechanism, which I am convinced is as big, if not bigger, of a challenge in healthcare as the recruitment piece of it. So we've learned lots of lessons. I could talk probably a whole presentation on just lessons learned through West Tennessee Healthcare and kind of getting started in this program. But we'll move forward to talk specifically about apprenticeships, since I know that is what everyone is here for today. We have found that our real value is being able to serve as that apprenticeship intermediary. As Ms. Shaw said earlier, there was sponsor, employer, training provider. As an intermediary, we've become a sponsor through a couple of different programs. We've recently had 7 graduated apprentices in certified medical assistant, community health worker, and also workforce development coordinator. We as an organization decided to walk the talk, and we've asked our workforce staff that is led by Beth Keelan, who has more than 15 years of workforce development experience with Department of Labor. We've asked them to participate in the program as well, so that they really know what it involves, and that they can demonstrate to the people that they work with that it is achievable to get that certificate that was shown from the U.S. Department of Labor. Outside of our 7 graduated apprentices, we have 14 registered apprentices. Most of these are in our partnership with Vanderbilt College of Nursing, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're on the webinar with us today. They received a grant, as did Meharry Medical College and the Board of Regents, to work with and grow the community health worker workforce. And as the only, excuse me, my dog's barking, hopefully y'all can't hear that. We were the registered apprentice program. So a requirement of that grant was to have a registered apprenticeship program, which we did. So we subcontract with them to serve in that sponsor role, which I'll talk a little bit more about. And we've got about 12 employer partners that are doing the registered apprenticeship program as a whole. Again, most of our partners are smaller partners at this time, or maybe a smaller division as part of a larger organization, which is why we really applaud THA and TCWD for their work in trying to build capacity for other entities that want to implement this for the healthcare sector. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit more about what an intermediary does. So really, the benefit of working with an intermediary is that we become a support partner and help serve as a liaison between the employer and the Office of Apprenticeship. So we assist with the administration and compliance support, because this is a federal and state funded program. So there are certain compliance measures that are involved with that, assisting with the keeping track of hours, developing a training plan, and those sorts of things. What makes us a little bit different is that we, as an organization, we've been able to find funding that also provides case management support. So in registered apprenticeship programs, one of the requirements of the journeyman or the preceptor, there are limits on how many apprentices they can work with at a time. And our case management really helps provide additional support to the workers on the job, and also to the trainees as they go through the program. So that can be reviewing those soft skills again. It can be assisting with anything additional that they need to either obtain a job or to obtain certification. We've been able to provide support for background checks, for certification fees, for practice exams, and if someone demonstrates a financial need, we're really well connected with our other workforce partners to see if there's a program available for them. And if there's not, and there is some sort of barrier that has existed to help someone be successful those first days on the job, we've been able to provide support there, that maybe in terms of scrubs or medical equipment, new shoes, whatever that may be. We've also assisted with recruiting, and this again is because we've got those really strong relationships with the K-12 partners, with the TCATs and others. And then also training delivery, whether it's us directly or working with another entity that has some training programs out there, we're able to work as that training partner that Ms. Shaw showed you in that earlier slide. So currently we're doing work around labor and delivery doulas and community health workers. Again, primarily have been working with Vanderbilt through their program. We've got staff that are also going through that community health worker program. Peer recovery specialist is something that is a focus of our rural community opioid response grant. Behavioral health technicians is something that we worked with a career and technical education instructor who wasn't aware of the growing demand in behavioral and mental health careers. And then again, the workforce ready. And then of course, in the instance of our program, we're always looking to secure matching funding sources to help with those other needs. So this is a real, good overview of our program. Of course, we are a small organization. Our capacity is limited, but I really encourage anyone that is considering working or going towards an apprenticeship model to consider working with an intermediary. Obviously, the Office of Apprenticeships are there for support as well, but having someone that can help alleviate the administrative burden and kind of walk you through process, and it's their full-time job, right? Whereas an HR person or a coordinator or an admin are doing many things. Our staff are 100% devoted to case management and compliance. Little shout out here to National Healthcare Corporation, who have assisted living and skilled nursing facilities across the state. We've done quite a bit of work with them throughout the past year and hoping to continue that as well. I believe we're nearing the end of my presentation. Our next slide is just to share with you some of our upcoming events. I bring these up because we do anticipate that workforce will be part of each of these. The National Rural Health Association has their Health Policy Institute February 14th and 15th. I can tell you that our federal senators and representatives are always asking about our rural hospitals and the workforce program. And so anyone is welcome to look that up and participate if you're interested. In March, we've got our State Advocacy Day. Again, we expect there to be some bills around workforce development, hopefully specifically for healthcare. And then we've got regional events throughout the spring, which will focus largely on opioid response, but also some workforce pieces of that as well. And then our very last slide here, I believe, is just a thank you for your support of rural health. Here is my contact information, as well as Beth Keelan, who I mentioned earlier as our workforce development coordinator, Kristen McWhorter for the rural health clinics, and Allie Haynes for our membership. Thank you.
Thank you, JC, so much. It's wonderful work that you all are doing, and appreciate your insight and experience with not only apprenticeship programs, but the workforce development. I know that you all are working hard on all of these programs, so thank you again for sharing that. Any questions specifically for JC regarding her presentation? Please go ahead and unmute yourself and have a little bit of time for a couple questions. We do have a few questions in the chat that are general questions, and I will be, I'll reserve those to the end of our presentations because I think that we'll strike up some dialogue around those, but we will address those questions in the chat at the end. Okay, if we don't have any direct questions for JC, again, thank you so much, and I'll introduce our next presenter. Our next presenter is Julie Trott. Julie Trott is a neurophysiologist, thank you, with over 16 years of clinical experience and 10 years in educational leadership. Julie earned her master's in biology with a graduate certificate in emerging diseases before earning a graduate certificate in adult education. In her role as director of the IONM training program for specialty care, Julie serves in coordination and delivery of academic coursework in the program. She is a member of the ASET Board of Trustees and serves on the Education Committee for the ASNM and was the 2019 Malcolm Knowles Award winner through the American Association for Adult and Continuing Education. Thank you, Julie, for joining us, and we look forward to your content.
Thanks so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Just double checking.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. I think that, you know, obviously I'm over a program that is not a nursing program. It's not kind of your typical allied health program, but I do think that we've got several years under our belt of a successful training program that has been registered as an apprenticeship. So I think I can provide, you know, some insight into our program and how it works and kind of what our development looks like. So again, I'm the Director of Clinical Training Programs for Specialty Care's Neuroservices Division. Specialty Care is an outsourced clinical services provider. We contract with physician groups or hospitals, and we have a perfusion service line, a neuroservices service line, and a minimally invasive surgical support, as well as sterile processing service line. We are headquartered in Nashville, but our services are throughout 46 different states throughout the country. Now, specifically in intraoperative neuromonitoring, we are the largest provider of services in the nation. We do provide training in all of our lines, but today I'm really going to focus on the registered apprenticeship program within our intraoperative neuromonitoring service. So if we can go to the next slide. So our intraoperative neurophysiologic monitoring, this as a field, this is the use of electrophysiologic methods during surgery. You probably have heard of things like EEG or evoked potentials that would be used in neurodiagnostics in a clinic. This is almost the same exact thing, but during surgery. And so it's used to assess and monitor and map the function of nervous system structures and alert the surgeon of any impending injury so that early intervention can prevent postoperative deficits. So really making those surgeries safer. Training and education in this industry varies widely still. And I think it's in part due to how young our industry is. It's only really been popularized in the last 20 years or so. But at this point, we do have a few university-based programs and a few formal service provider-based apprenticeship programs. So that's where we fall. Slide, please. So just wanted to start off, there we go, start off here by just emphasizing the great benefit that we've seen in the apprenticeship model. And that is, I believe, the program's sort of symbiotic relationship with its stakeholders, that being the operations and really the health of the organization itself. So the training program itself exists because of operations. You know, our trainees are able to be brought on because of available open positions. They can be paid and we can be paid as leaders of the program because of the health of the service line. And in turn, the organization depends on the program as it's part of its staffing model. So we as leaders of the program and part of this organization, of course, are continuously tasked with doing better and achieving more in terms of the outcome of the program and the performance of our graduates. So we have skin in the game, if you will. It's a healthy relationship, but it's a very critical relationship that I think may look different in like an allied health school or university setting. Slide, please. So in a typical program evaluation, of course, you're looking at the training program processes and outcomes, student performance and student surveys and whatnot. But in an apprenticeship program, you also have this added benefit of real-time data collection from your operations as well. So truly, how are your graduates performing in their work? And this evaluation method, of course, drives the evolution and ongoing improvement of the program over time. We're also constantly flexing to meet the needs of the organization. So operational leaders will tell us and drive how large our classes need to be, and when they would start, and what teams throughout the country these apprentices need to join. And so we set our trainees up for success by also incorporating the organization's model of performance assessment and performance improvement into the program itself. So it's not this like change in expectations or culture when the apprentice graduates and begins their work, you know. So we're using the same performance evaluation forms, the competency assessment forms, and performance improvement forms from, you know, HR, corrective action. So all of that really looks the same in the program, as well as, you know, in the work. As the organization uses, you know, their associate assessments and development and corrective action, all of that kind of is a mirror image of one another. Slide. So our program is nationally recognized by the credentialing board in our industry. It's called ABRET, so that we can provide a pathway to board certification through this apprenticeship. And that allows us to provide a pathway to individuals who do not hold a bachelor's degree. However, at this time, we still do internally choose to require a bachelor's degree as part of our selection criteria for this particular apprenticeship program. You know, that's a big decision in kind of shifting the selection criteria. So we are looking at developing another type of apprenticeship program where maybe we can take advantage of individuals with maybe just an associate's degree, things like that. Slide. And we've done pretty well with keeping our certification pass rate above the national average. So the bar graph here represents our pass rate each year since 2014, and the trend line across the bars is the national pass rate. So all of our graduates are board certified, which is not a requirement in our industry. It's a certification, it's not licensure, but it is a requirement of our organization. So being the largest provider of intraoperative monitoring services, you know, we are sort of, when we set a standard, we're sort of setting a standard throughout the industry in a way. So it's a bit of a, you know, responsibility that we hold within specialty care. So we do choose to require board certification. Side note, we do call our training program the Surgical Neurophysiologist Training Program. So I'll refer to our trainees throughout the rest of the slides as SN1s. So that's Surgical Neurophysiologist Level 1. Now, as far as attrition, so I've got some numbers here. As far as attrition, and this is combined voluntary and involuntary terms, and this has fluctuated greatly over the years. And by the way, this is program attrition, so this is during the training itself. Our attrition of our graduates from the organization is actually much, much lower. So once they graduate, they tend to stick with us. But during the training, attrition has, you know, has made an impact. But I think overall, you know, we've learned that attrition in a training program is going to be higher than what we would expect of our overall service line. Most of our attrition is voluntary. And so there are some efforts that we can take to sort of drive the needle here, but I do think that COVID introduced a lot of changes for us in terms of what college graduates expect their employment will be like. And in healthcare careers, I think this was alluded to a bit earlier in the webinar, in healthcare careers, it is very difficult for us to uphold some of those expectations of college grads these days. So we are still trying to bounce back from the impact of that sort of cultural shift that sometimes external forces introduce. But again, as an organization, we do find that our graduates tend to stick around. It's just, you know, during the program, we do see a good bit of attrition. So slide, please. Our selection process is a pretty steep funnel process. Starts with applicants being screened by job fit assessments and recruiters. We started with something called the Burke assessment, and we have since taken what we've really learned from using that Burke assessment, and we've discontinued that, and now we're using a company called Korn Ferry to provide training to really best train our screeners and interviewers so that we don't need that assessment anymore. Some of those job fit assessments get expensive over time, so it's, cost savings. But the remaining candidates after our initial fit assessment or screening will then speak with operational directors. And then the remaining candidates after that will have a panel interview with the training program leaders. And so we typically aim to panel interview twice the number of candidates that we are hiring for. And we typically hire between 8 and 15 students per cohort. We hire about 4 to 5 cohorts per year. So it is important as far as our efficiencies. It's important in our particular apprenticeship model that we hire groups of people. We hire cohorts and bring them on, as a class. Slide, please. Our IONM SN1 training program, this is kind of the process. It is a 1-year training process. All training starts with 8 weeks of fundamental academic and clinical training. So without having a pre-apprenticeship program, this sort of serves as our pre-apprenticeship, if you will, the beginning part. And then we move into true competency and assessment in the second chunk of the process. And then the third part of our training process is really focused on national board certification. Slide. So just showing some further detail about what happens in each phase here. Again, our first 8 weeks is really laying the foundation. So most of the academics in our program are e-distance learning based, but in that first 8 weeks, that first fundamental phase, we do incorporate 2 trips to our Nashville training site. So this gives us the opportunity to use our simulation OR and getting some hands-on introductory training, which makes a big difference, being able to have people on site, just in terms of the communication and getting to know getting to know one another and helping them to feel supported, but then also to get that hands-on experiential training. So we also take the opportunity to introduce the apprentices to many of the relevant departments in the organization. So we're laying the fundamental groundwork of academic learning, but also kind of getting them ingrained in how the organization works as a whole. We also do start providing introductory training within the OR during that first 8 weeks. Of course, not in Nashville, on their individual local teams. We start to have them go into the ORs for some days throughout the week, and then other days they're online with us for academics. So we do have a final exam at the end of that first 8 weeks, along with other shorter exams and graded assignments throughout the initial 8-week period to assess their early on, performance in the program. Slide. And each of our apprentices is assigned a clinical instructor, and this is someone on their local team. And those, those instructors do have their own, requirements, and they have to complete an instructor training with us. But we do have, we have a service line of over 600 people, so we do have the benefit of having one-on-one training. So the clinical instructors oversee the apprentices in the OR on a one-on-one basis and provide what we call progress reports. That's basically a clinical assessment. And instructors are incentivized with a bonus that is awarded per trainee once the trainee achieves their initial competencies. And so you can see that 30% of that bonus achievement is based on the performance of the trainee. Slide, please. So over the years in our initial exploration process of starting this apprenticeship, it was a bit of trial, we had a bit of trial and error in several different processes, but one of those processes was our progress reporting process, where the instructor completes a report specifying what tasks the apprentice is performing independently as opposed to where they still need assistance. So at first, many years ago, we required those reports on a weekly basis. And we eventually decided to ask for them on a daily basis. And we saw a huge improvement as far as getting our apprentices, to become competent quicker. And soon thereafter, we started saying, let's require these reports per case. So sometimes they'll have multiple cases monitored in a day. And we said, let's go ahead and get a report on each individual case. So these are transparent. These reports are held, transparent to the trainee so that they can develop and improve based on the scoring and feedback. So what we found in our program is that these trainees became quicker and, just quicker and quicker at achieving their competencies with the more frequent, consistent progress reports. So this is just one example of, being able to kind of measure your processes and see, what's improving over time. Slide. In the second part of the training program, there are a lot of layers in this stage. We call this our Swiss cheese model, meaning that we know that individual components of competency training and assessment are going to have holes in them where gaps or bad practices can slip through. But when you layer more and more, with each additional layer, we decrease the likelihood that a hole exists, that an underperformer or a bad practice will make their way through the entire process. So we incorporate things like online case defense presentations, where an apprentice has to walk us through one of the cases that was monitored, and we have to ask questions. They have to kind of defend the monitoring practices. Additional case audits and additional requirements for online supervision for a number of cases, these kinds of things. And then of course a final exam. Slide. And lastly, in phase 3, we take 10 weeks to prepare SN1s for their final board exam. So this is kind of the end of the training program. And then once they are board certified, we do ask that they deliver a final presentation to their local teams, which provides an opportunity to sort of celebrate them and to also really spearhead their career development and where they want to take their career. So do like an extra little bit of research into something more advanced that they haven't learned about yet. So we've found that this is just culturally a really positive experience to kind of put a bow on the entire training process and actually celebrate the graduate rather than just, the next day being another day of work. Slide, please. And once again, our program structure and performance. Did you guys see the slide advance? Oh, there it goes. I have a little bit of a delay. I think once again, our program structure and performance measures are reflective of the needs of the organization, like we mentioned before. So our performance measures throughout the process remain very transparent. I think it's important to have these performance measures that are just really easy to follow and very obvious to the apprentices. So we call them the ABCs: academics, behavioral, and clinical, performance measures. And the milestones in the training program are associated with incremental salary increases. So when you achieve, your first clinical competency, there's the first salary increase, and it is based on those ABC performance measures, et cetera. Our program was always designed this way with these incremental increases, but when we became a registered program within the Department of Labor, we actually discovered that this was an important component of registered apprenticeship, according to the Department of Labor. They wanted to make sure that we had, these incremental increases that clearly display the apprentice's progress toward program completion, as well as a clear distinction between compensation of an apprentice versus a graduate. And slide, please. There we go. So we became a registered apprenticeship in 2021, and I've listed here some of the benefits of becoming a registered apprenticeship. So promotion of our program online on the Department of Labor and job postings has resulted in additional candidates, additional applicants. The application process for, becoming a registered apprenticeship in and of itself helps identify some of the programmatic needs, some things that we didn't have and obviously, should have had, such as really writing out like your formal standards, writing out an affirmative action plan, writing out the selection process, and making these things really formalized so that they can be extremely transparent. And then the Department of Labor also has an online data collection forum called Rapids, where kind of forces you to collect information and organize that information about your apprentices, which is also helpful. In 2022, by way of the Department of Labor, we were able to begin working with an organization called HCAP, Healthcare Career Advancement Programs. And HCAP has added an additional layer of a lot of support. I meet monthly with a representative from HCAP who can offer just guidance and check in and kind of ask what additional resources we may need or what additional questions we may be coming up with that month. And through them, I've also been able to have access to a grant program. And through that grant, we were able to provide scrubs to our trainees, as well as offset some of the costs of their travel back to our Nashville training site during the foundational training period. So overall, since 2021, it has been incredibly beneficial, and that is my summary. So happy to answer any questions from anybody, and I'm sure Farrell can share my contact information for anyone who wanted to reach out. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Julie, so much. That is a great program, and I feel like it's definitely a great example of how you all took a program, the different layers of that program, and how the apprenticeship model has been overlaid with it. So I really greatly appreciate all of the content. Again, if you have any direct questions, if you'll put those in the chat, we'll go ahead and move to our next presenter, and then he is our last presenter. Zachary will present, and then I'll address all of the questions in the chat, and then I also have a couple questions for each of the presenters if we get a chance to answer those, but definitely want to do that. So I'll go ahead and move to the next presenter. Again, if you do have any questions, please feel free to use the chat, but we will also unmute everyone and have some dialogue after our last presenter. So thank you so much. All right, our last presenter and our next presenter is Zachary Adams. Zachary is the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and Workforce Alignment with the Tennessee Board of Regents College System of Tennessee. Zachary has worked in both K-12 and higher education in classroom, administrative, and policy settings in New York, Mississippi, and Tennessee. Before joining the TBR, Zachary worked at the Department of Education, developing the final pillar of Governor Haslam's Drive to 55 initiative. This work defined the vision of guided pathways from K-12 into college and career for Tennessee school systems. At TBR, Zachary is responsible for policy, programs, and partnerships that strengthen the connections between education and the workforce. He leads TBR's Center for Apprenticeship, which has secured over $2.5 million to support the expansion of apprenticeship opportunities. He is regularly invited to share promising practices from his work in local, state, and national settings, including most recently with the Texas Commission on Virtual Education and the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. Zachary is a PhD candidate at the University of Tennessee at Knoxville and holds his master's degree in the public policy from Vanderbilt University. Thank you so much, Zachary, for joining us. I'll dive into your slides if you want to go ahead and get started.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with y'all this morning, talking at my computer, which is always an odd sensation, but really excited to be here today to talk a little bit about apprenticeship, how it can meet your most pressing workforce needs as healthcare systems across the state and perhaps across the country or across the Southeast region. And then I want to end my presentation with talking about how our colleges across the state can partner with your local facilities and hospitals to help meet any of your workforce training needs. So before I dive into the Center of Apprenticeship, I first want to give you a snapshot of who TBR is, where our colleges are located, and the types of programs we offer in the healthcare and allied health space. So the College System of Tennessee is the state's system of community and technical colleges offering technical diplomas and associate degree programs, as well as short-term workforce training and apprenticeships. Our system serves over 100,000 students, making us the largest college system in the state. And we have 37 colleges across the state with a footprint in almost every single county in the state of Tennessee, which allows us to be nimble and responsive to workforce demands in each of the state's counties. At our colleges, we offer anywhere from 15 to 20 allied health programs on the credit side of the house. Those range from practical nursing to EMT and paramedic, sterile processing technicians, phlebotomy. Many of our allied health grads are probably working in your facilities. And for each of those programs, in many cases, we're able to offer those in a variety of ways. An apprenticeship is one of those opportunities. So as I move into talking about our Center for Apprenticeship and how it can assist you, I want you to take a moment and just in your mind, identify your three most pressing needs in terms of hiring individuals and what occupation that is. So maybe for one of you, it is certified medical assistants, phlebotomist, and sterile processing technicians. Maybe for another of you, it's practical nurses or nurses. So as you imagine those occupations and the need that you have for those employees, apprenticeship can serve the role of helping you meet those workforce needs. There are some caveats. Many of the allied health professions that have licensing boards, professional boards in the state, they are involved in the apprenticeship process, and for occupations like nursing and practical nursing, there are still conversations that need to be had that I know THA and TBR are leading to help open up apprenticeship as an opportunity for those nursing pathways. But apprenticeship is a tool that can meet your most pressing workforce needs for any occupation that you can imagine. It is an incredibly easy training program to start, given the resources that Tennessee has in place, both through Shalandria Shaw and her team at the Department of Labor and at TBR. So I mentioned that TBR has 37 colleges across the state. Each of those colleges has an office for workforce development, and that team of individuals can meet with you to identify occupations that you would like to explore using the apprenticeship model, and then help you work with Department of Labor to either register that occupation or get your apprenticeship started. So each of those offices has dedicated staff that are able to help you even just explore this opportunity. So I would love to connect with you. I'll put my email in the chat to talk through occupations that you may have identified that you would like to explore the apprenticeship model with. One of the benefits of apprenticeship is your ability to identify current employees who may be serving in a receptionist role or perhaps a medical billing role who you know have a strong work ethic, they're committed to your company, and they're looking for career advancement. Those individuals you can identify and sometimes are the best individuals to identify for an apprenticeship. So that medical billing individual or that receptionist who wants to break into, say, medical assisting can do that through an apprenticeship model where they continue to work for you. They don't have to take time off to go back to school, and they can advance into a new occupation using apprenticeship. And the flexibility with how that advancement occurs is entirely up to you and the demands of their current job. So for instance, let's say you've got a receptionist who wants to become a medical assistant. That individual can continue to work in her receptionist role while learning some of her early technical instruction and earning some of her early on-the-job training hours. So you can slowly transition her or him to 100% medical assisting as they make their way and begin to learn some of the competencies associated with medical assisting. So apprenticeship is a great tool for identifying current employees and providing them with an opportunity for career advancement that helps you retain that person because you're investing in them, you're showing them that you want them to grow into a new career path with opportunity for advancement. In that example of an individual earning their medical assisting apprenticeship, TBR, one of our colleges, has a bridge program from medical assisting into LPN. So let's say you have multiple receptionists or just support staff roles, individuals who are looking to break into the healthcare, into a healthcare career. They can earn that CMA through an apprenticeship and then potentially start their LPN. And then that puts them on that nursing pathway to earn their associate's degree in nursing and perhaps their bachelor's degree in nursing. So apprenticeship really can open up doors for individuals who are already working in your company. Next slide, please. So I hope that gives you a sense of how apprenticeship can benefit your workforce needs. We have established a center of apprenticeship to help support each of our colleges develop apprenticeships with employers across the state in a variety of occupations, including allied health. Last year, our colleges delivered over 1.5 million hours of workforce training to just under 900 companies across the state. So our colleges are well versed and ready to meet your workforce needs, one of those being apprenticeship training. So the Center of Apprenticeship was created here at the system office to promote apprenticeship. And we do that in 4 ways. First, by creating marketing materials to highlight student stories, to highlight employer success stories, because those are the ways in which we help articulate the benefit of apprenticeship. We create resources on how to start an apprenticeship and grow an apprenticeship. so that our colleges are well versed on the partners, whether that be Department of Labor or their local workforce boards who can help them start apprenticeships. We've secured and are actively looking for federal, state, and philanthropic sources for grant funding to help pay or offset the cost of apprenticeship, so that isn't a burden for employers who are interested in trying an apprenticeship. Very often, we'll have an employer come to us. They've never done an apprenticeship before, but because we can provide the funding and the support, the administrative support to start the apprenticeship, they enroll 2 or 3 individuals, and then in the next year it quickly balloons to 10 to 15 individuals because they've seen the success that apprenticeship can have. And then we also realize that the center can serve an awareness function. So oftentimes we're presenting to different industry groups, like we are this morning, or like I am this morning, and we pitch apprenticeship as a training option. And so we're doing that. We've done that with the Tennessee Forestry Association and their membership to start the state's first forestry apprenticeship. We are exploring apprenticeship in emerging industries like biotechnology. We have an NSF grant to support the development of a workforce training and a potential apprenticeship for biotechnician assistants that can work in a variety of lab settings. So the center is not only looking to support existing industries in Tennessee, but really be on the cutting edge and the forefront of emerging industries that are coming to Tennessee. Next slide, please. I mentioned that our colleges are well positioned to support you and your workforce needs using apprenticeship. Here are some of our metrics from last year around apprenticeship growth. We've seen double-digit growth. Many of our colleges are starting apprenticeships for their first time using their credit programs to develop apprenticeship models. Our largest apprenticeship in the state is with a chemical manufacturer, Eastman Chemical in Northeast Tennessee. They've been doing apprenticeships since the 1940s. And so they are well versed and understand the model, but they are currently training over 250 employees through an apprenticeship. And so I think that really just signals that for particular occupations, apprenticeship can truly be one of the primary ways in which you're driving or meeting your workforce needs. We have a video, but we don't have sound, so we'll send that out after this. But this, again, just provides an overview of apprenticeship. And I would love to answer any questions you might have. I can't see the chat, but I'm sure that there might be some, or we can move into our final discussion together.
Thank you, Zachary, so much for that overview. We're very excited for the TBR schools and their Office of a Center of Apprenticeship to help support these types of relationships. There are 3 questions in the chat, and I will address those. We do have just a few moments left, so we have about 9 minutes. And so I will unmute. Morgan, we'll start with you. You are our first question, so we'll unmute you. But I will start by reading the question here. Let me get to Morgan here, sorry. So Morgan's question is, one challenge I see is young individuals who want to participate, even at high school level. How do we move past the age requirements in healthcare? For example, we won't hire you until you're 17 or 18 due to regulations on a level of exposure in healthcare. It would be nice if individuals could enter the healthcare workforce as young as 16 when most parents require their child to get a job. I will start by saying that there is, I'm going to stop sharing so that we can see here. Here we go. I will start by saying that there are stipulations around those under the age of 18. I'm happy to share the links and the tools for that. I don't know if anyone else on the call has information on that. It looks like Zachary does. But there is an ability to hire folks at under the age of 18, including 16-year-olds within hospital type settings. So Zachary, thank you. Do you want to add to that?
Yes, I will just highlight one opportunity that's available to high school students, and that is pre-practical nursing. So the Board of Nursing approved a new pathway to engage high school students in the nursing career pathway called pre-practical nursing. So high school students are able to start the practical nursing degree while in high school. I believe they finish several of the trimesters required for the program. So when they get out of high school and they are 18, they've got just about 1 or 2 trimesters left to finish that pre-practical nursing program. We have school systems across the state who, again, are leveraging the dual enrollment grant that pays for the entirety of a technical degree program, who are earning their CNA or their CMA as a high school student, and certainly would love to have conversations about particular occupations or degree programs that you would like to explore exposure to high school students, because Tennessee has an incredibly robust scholarship program for high school students to begin their journey toward an allied health degree that make getting that coursework started a lot easier, because there's no, at least the financial barrier is removed. So not a solution for all occupations, but there are some that we've made some progress on, and I think JC probably has some more information than I do.
I can share just a little bit based on West Tennessee Healthcare's experience. We met with their legal team and HR people many times because there's not an issue with state law for them to hire under 18. However, it was their own policy and, you know, worries about privacy and some kind of healthcare specific things. And it is hard because sometimes students will graduate CNA programs in high school and then have to go work fast food until they're able to move into healthcare. And so it's something that really has to happen at the employer level, number one. Number two, if for some reason there's absolutely no way for your facility to get around that, maybe introducing to other profession types. Again, a CNA is probably not going to want to work in food service or housekeeping, but it might kind of give them an introduction to the culture of the organization and kind of, you know, some of the behind the scenes things until they move ahead. We've kind of seen some workarounds happen as well.
Yeah, my understanding or my HR and legal's team understanding is related to the occupational hazard component for exposure in healthcare, not necessarily the privacy, but the blood and bodily fluid exposure from the OSHA/TOSHA standpoint. So that is where we are. So any information that anyone has utilized or links that you have that I can share with them to be able to change our current policy. I'm very familiar with the dual enrollment and ability in the state of Tennessee through the Tennessee Promise and other things for people to get essentially their 2 years for free for almost anyone that's not necessarily even income driven. I think in our area in East Tennessee, in conversation with the school systems yesterday, they struggle with using any of that dual enrollment credit for like the LPN pieces, because then they wouldn't be able to complete the perhaps ADN nursing program if they've utilized credit hours in the LPN program. So there's some struggle currently, and in our area, we are not offering the LPN program to high school students. I know when I went to nursing school, not in the state of Tennessee, or when I went to high school, not in the state of Tennessee, we had through our technical program an LPN program in high school that you could enroll in and graduate from at the same time of high school. And so just with the need for the use of the LPN, especially more so now in the acute care environment, I see a need for us to be able to figure out an easier path for that to happen, because so many of these students need to be workforce ready when they graduate high school.
I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't have a list of participants, but I appreciate the comments from the person who was just speaking. It sounds like there's a misconception with among those school system leaders. And so I would love to chat with you offline to talk through how we could potentially start some of those pre-practical nursing programs, because the dual enrollment grant and Tennessee Promise don't overlap. And so their students wouldn't be losing funding from after they're 18 by using the dual enrollment grant. So if you're willing, I'd love to chat more about how to start a pre-practical nursing program.
Certainly.
I was
And
just going to say
Carol,
that.
I know we collaborate, at least what I'm used to across the state, with the deans and CNOs and directors. Do we ever pull into healthcare, the school systems at the high school level? Do we ever have conversation with them at the THA level? Because I think as we talk about workforce development, that's a huge gap in how we pull in the educational school systems who we need to help us be our pipeline for the workforce.
Absolutely. We have actually started engaging quite a bit with the Department of Education in the last several months, and more and more with our local universities. So continuing the conversation about what the pathway looks like and what the opportunities are, I think is a definite takeaway from this call and from your comments. So I appreciate that, because we do have people in different areas who are doing it, right? And so I think it's just a knowledge gap to that point of helping to understand, because there are lots of semantics, lots of different things that we have to do. So we will dig more into that. I have that as a takeaway, but we'll also share, JC and I will get our resources together on links and different things for workers under the age of 18 and where those resources are. We also have some examples of other healthcare organizations that are doing it. So I think it's always good sometimes for those folks to be able to talk and say, how did they do it and what did they do? So we will provide those. I know we are at the top of the hour, and I realize that some folks may have to fall off. If our presenters are okay, if you have 5 or 10 more minutes, I would love to get to the other 2 questions that came in, and then we can address any other questions afterwards, and folks can email them. So Morgan, we will more to come, and we will continue to engage you on those conversations. Mary Ellen, I'm going to make sure she's still with us. She is. I'm going to go ahead and unmute her. Mary Ellen asked a question. I would like to know more about the required hours for apprenticeship. If we want to partner with our nursing school partners to create apprenticeships for nursing students, it would be hard to meet the 2,000 paid hour requirement. I know that other states have approved apprenticeship for nursing students. What are our barriers in the state of Tennessee to do this? So I'll start, and then Shalandria, I don't know, or anyone else if you guys want. Mary Ellen, right now we are having, yes.
Can I give you a little bit more context as well?
Absolutely.
What I'm interested in is because the nursing schools are training basic nursing skills. And I'm wondering if we could do a side-by-side apprentice program for like an apprenticeship for the OR, an apprenticeship for the ED, an apprenticeship for the cath lab, an apprenticeship for, so that they get specialty skill training, and that is really not offered in the nursing schools that they have to learn when they get here, which, you know, we are very challenged on the hospital side to have experienced staff, and it would be very lovely if we could partner while they were in school to try to do some of this training and get them get them a certificate of an apprenticeship through the cath lab, an apprenticeship through the emergency department. But I know that may require, the Board of Nursing, but I think it's very innovative, and I think we need to try to go there.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for providing that context. I would love to talk to you offline about this. I think that there is a lot of opportunity. There is already, if someone is licensed, there is approval already at the federal level for a registered nurse apprenticeship, and many people utilize exactly those skilling up type programs or pathways for those that are licensed. The big thing that we're talking with the Board of Nursing about is when you're really blending the role of a student and an employee. And so I think that there's ways to do it with our current extern models. I know there are several folks who are doing like very focused, specialized externs. And so that really is looking at what their scope is pre-license. We do have some allowances. And so I think you could create a program and a role of growing people into those specialties that could be very targeted, and I'm sure could be in the apprenticeship model, being a registered apprenticeship. So I would love to talk more offline about how, and I think Zach as well, but how we could create those things, because I think that there's a way that we can do it without actually working outside of anything in its current state. But I will add very quickly that we are engaged with the Board of Nursing on what a student nurse apprenticeship would look like, or a student nurse earn as you learn apprentice program would look like. And that conversation is ongoing. We did present to the Board of Nursing about, hey, that person who is a student and an employee who is getting that same training or type of training that applies to their education pathway as well as their progressive pathway as an employee, what does that look like? And so we are engaged in those conversations. But in regards to specialty training, I think that there's ways that we can do that in the current rules. Zach, I'll let you go ahead and add.
Yeah, just very quickly, I highlighted our workforce development offices that each of our colleges have, and they're responsible for any workforce training. So that includes apprenticeships and short-term workforce training. And so they regularly partner with companies to develop specialized short-term trainings that are very targeted for a specific skill set. So again, would love to connect you with the colleges closest to wherever your facilities are to have just an exploratory conversation about how we might be able to deliver a short-term workforce training for a specialty, because our colleges do that very well.
Thank you, Zach. And I think Shalandria and I, as a takeaway, can spend some time with this group in really helping to maybe outline what that 2,000 hours looks like in different programs. Because Mary Ellen, I think that in my experience with a CNA apprenticeship, there are a lot of hours that is training that they're already doing, either as part of their training program or as an employer, that count towards that. And so I think it would be helpful for us to kind of reduce it down or flesh it out a little bit in regards to that 2,000 hours, because I agree, 2,000 hours on top of, no, it's in conjunction with the training and the requirements that they already have for either their certification or their licensure requirements. So helping to flesh that out is something that I'm taking as a takeaway Shalandria and those of you on the call that maybe we can provide some examples in that and let people really see how those hours that for the apprenticeship are accomplished. If that would be okay with this work.
That would be very helpful because 2,080 hours is somebody that works full-time 80 hours a pay period. And so at the end of the year, I said, when would they have time to do anything else?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we'll get that for you. Absolutely. And let's see, Jessica had a question about benefits for employer registering programs such as like CNA programs that they are actually creating at the employer level. And Zach answered that in his presentation. So we don't need to necessarily address that, but I will happily share the contact information and our email addresses for our presenters today, as well as any other information that we have taken notes on. So I have a few takeaways for us to gather. We will again be sharing the recording and the presentation materials. Our great presenters have provided handouts and different resources for you all. So that will be coming by the end of the week. Any other things that we want to add from the group here? I think that's the end of our questions in the chat. All right. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you for your extra time and your dedication to this webinar. We really look forward to this continued conversation and more to come. And thank you all for your time and attention today.